So today we're going to take a close look at the Power Virtual Agent, which is a chatbot that's a relatively new feature of the Power Platform. So we're logged into our Power Apps portal. We've selected our target environment. We're going to now go to the chatbots area. Now I've created a sample chatbot that's very close to the out-of-box example, and I'll show you how I did that. So I'm going to go to List and open the Andozi bot demo that I've created. So one thing that you'll see here on my screen is a testing area. Once you've set up your bot, you can give it a test. We'll come back and see this in a few minutes. For now, I'm going to leave that closed. So the first thing after that you'll see is topics. And topics are the definitions of information that can be asked by your users and the flow of information that will be sent back to them. So there were some out-of-box topics that were created for me, lessons 1 through 4. For now, I've disabled those just so that those won't show in our demo. I've created my own custom topic called Password Reset, and that's the one we'll look at. But you'll notice as well there's some other out-of-box system topics that handle just starting and ending of the interaction with the user. So we're going to go into the Password Reset. And after providing some basic information, the next thing you'll see is trigger phrases. These are the input phrases that you can expect from your users, and these are used to train the chatbot's responses. Now, one thing to notice, and we'll see this later, the user does not have to provide the exact match based on the trigger phrases. They can provide a rough match, and the system's AI, based on the training from these phrases, will find the closest match and respond to them. So we've defined some basic trigger phrases having to do with password or login or account. So after that, we'll want to define the interactions that will occur with the users, and we can use the authoring canvas to establish this. So on the authoring canvas, we see here the trigger phrases from the previous screen. Then we can define steps that the system will take, whether it's answering with a message, asking a question, triggering a flow, a Power Automate flow, or responding to the answer provided by the user to take a different branch and give a different response depending on their answer. So in this case, we ask the user, would you like to reset your password? If they answer yes or true, that takes one path. If they answer no, then we ask if they'd like to be contacted by an agent, and so forth. And we ultimately reach the end of the conversation. So now that we've seen the design of our interactions on this topic, the last thing you'll want to do is to save your topic. Now, I've already saved mine, so there's nothing left for me to do. Now that it's saved, you will need to publish your topic so that it will be available for your users. So you'll find that on the Publish menu on the left. We'll click Publish, and it will take a few moments. And after publishing, now we can test our topic. Just as I mentioned earlier, there's a link at the bottom left here to test your bot, and that opens a little chat area where you can run through and test the different interactions that your users will provide and see what responses the system will get. Now, this is really helpful because you can actually see the exact visual flow using the authoring canvas that we saw earlier. So let's just look at the hello for a second. So if I click this, it actually opens the authoring canvas and it shows me the path that was taken. Now this one is very linear with the hello, but let's see if we can engage the password topic. I can't seem to log in. Now that's a phrase that is not one that I provided, so it's not going to be an exact match, but let's see what the system does as far as matching that with our password topic. And sure enough, it looks like you're having trouble having issues logging into your account on our website. This is the password reset topic that we examined earlier. So it's gotten this far with the green steps. So now it's stopped and asked me a question. Would you like to reset your password? I say yes. Now it takes this left path here, condition true, asks another question, what is your username, email address, and so forth. And as I mentioned earlier, ultimately makes its way to the end of the conversation, which that is actually a different topic that it then starts, which asks the finishing questions. Did I answer your question? And then ultimately gives you a survey. So that's how you can test your the topics and test the interactions of your Power Virtual Agent from inside the authoring area. Let's see how you can now test this outside. If you expand the Manage menu, you'll see Channels. This is what gives you what you need to configure and expose your Power Virtual Agent through other channels. Cool things like Microsoft Teams, Facebook, Skype, quite a few of these things that your company might be using, and including email, which we'll see later as well. So for now, let's go to a demo website. And this is really not something you would use in production, but it is a good way to see what this would look like on your custom website. I went and copied the link that it gave here. We're just going to go visit that site. So this is pretty much just a simple website with a pretty design, but then it's exposing the same chat area that we saw on our Power Apps Virtual Agent management area. So we can do the same things we could do there. Yep, and see it's taking the same path that it took earlier. And yet another integration that your organization might really benefit from is using Microsoft Teams. So I've exposed the Power Virtual Agent through Teams, and it appears as a bot in Teams. So again, you can do the same types of interaction. I can't seem to find my password. Can you reset it for me? It looks like you're having issues logging into your account on our website. Would you like to reset your password? Now this time, let's try answering no. Now, this follows a different path that we defined in the authoring canvas, and this actually escalates to an agent. Would you like to be contacted by an agent? Yes. Oh, and this just means I haven't fully defined the flow to help the user make its way to an agent. But in real life, you would have that defined, and this would make its way to an agent, and then the agent would then reach out to the user and help them with anything that the chatbot was unable to help them with. And now let's look at the email integration with Power Virtual Agents. One thing to remember as you're designing your topics and the flow is what's your primary audience going to be using. If they're mainly going to be using chat, then you could design a more back and forth type of interaction. But if your primary user is going to be interacting with you through email, you may decide to group together a number of your responses so that the user has fewer back and forth emails. Just keep that in mind as you're designing your topics and using that authoring canvas to lay out the steps. So that you don't have too many emails back and forth. The example that you'll see here, in my opinion, is probably a little bit inappropriate for email and much more friendly for chat. It still works to show the interactions, but it's probably not what you would want in an ideal situation. So as you see here, we have an email address that is listening to our incoming emails, and then it will pass those over and handle the interactions with the Power Virtual Agent. So I've got any subject line, and then the body is the important thing. Please help, my password no longer works. Now keep in mind, I've seen if you include very busy email signatures, that can contribute to confusing the agent and get some kind of different unexpected results. So I'm keeping it very simple here. And again, real world situations, you may have some different things to consider. But we'll do a send. And just a few moments later, we'll get a response that hopefully will match to that password topic, and we'll see the same interactions that we saw just a moment ago in the chat. All right, and so now we've received not one, but 2 incoming emails. And again, like I mentioned, this is kind of a friendly thing in chat, but it is a little maybe strange to see 2 emails come back. So as you're designing that, you would want to combine those likely into a single message. Looks like you're having issues logging into your account on our website. Would you like to reset your password? Now in the chat, we had a yes and no buttons, but here we have the options provided, yes and no. We'll say yes and send it. And in just a moment, we'll receive the next prompt, which was asking for our email address. And again, as you're designing this in real world situation, you would have some other options as far as automatically extracting the user's email. So the point here is just simply showing that these interactions are still happening exactly as they happened that we saw in the chat window, even if they're not the best thing to do in an email. And again, we get several emails back, one saying the instructions have been sent to this email address, and then this is starting that end of conversation flow that's a separate topic that we saw in the designer a little while earlier. The last thing we'll look at is how you can use the analytics area to better understand the interactions that your users are having with the system and ultimately to improve their experience. So back in the Power Virtual Agents management area, if you click on the analytics navigation, the first thing you'll see is the summary, and this shows a lot of different reporting metrics about the interactions that have occurred between the users and the system. You can see here total sessions, engagement rate, escalation and abandonment rates. And this is kind of just from the test data that I've been using to prepare this demo, but in real life you'll see a lot of good information here that will lead you to better understand your users, and it will also, as I mentioned, help you improve your topics and improve the flows so that your users have a better interaction with your system.